Let me just kind of peruse and make sure. So Amy, Anna, are you guys able to hear me? Carrie, Joe, you guys are able to hear me? Go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Sharat, okay, perfect. Fabulous. We have a Joe and a Joseph, okay. So Joe, if you're able to hear me, if you could give me thumbs up. Looks like I got mostly thumbs up from everybody. Excellent. All right. So like I said, we are expecting a few others, but we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'll give them a few minutes. If they join, great. If they don't, then we shall carry on. So again, I just want to say good morning to everyone if I didn't catch you when you came in. So good morning and welcome. My name is Sherry Sanchez, and I'll be your facilitator for the Manager Tasks and Outcomes, Timekeeping and Basic Scheduling. So we've got a few housekeeping items to kind of go over before we get started. First, I kind of want to talk about a little bit about the flow of the session. So we'll get started here momentarily. Oh, hey, Joe. So if you can't see that thumbs up, I might have described that before you joined. There's a little icon, there's a menu bar across the very top. And so if you just go up there, you'll see a little person with their hand up. There's a button to the right of that, a down arrow that's associated with that. You click that down arrow, and that's where you'll see raise hand, you'll see agree, disagree, step away. So, you know, it's important to kind of know where those things are. So if I'm going too fast or you have any questions or if you should become interrupted and need to step away, you can utilize those tools. Do you see where I'm talking about there? Do you locate that menu option? Fabulous. All right. I see lots of folks there. Mostly everyone's responded. Even if you can't find that option, use the chat window. As long as you, oh, no worries, no worries. If you can't find the tools or locate it, just use the chat tool. You have a microphone too, so you can just unsupported content. Oh, I haven't heard that before. Okay. Well, you've located the chat tool, so if you don't mind, if you can just utilize that. I'm sorry that that's not working for you. But you can just use the chat tool. So, you know, if anything happens, you have any questions, or again, if you have a microphone or you're dialed in on the phone, I encourage anyone at any time if you have questions, just so, you know, just chime in and say, oh, hang on a minute, I got a question, or give me a second to catch up with where you are, or, you know, I don't know how you got there. It happens, so just let me know. Joe, again, if something happens and you become interrupted and need to step away, just shoot me a quick chat so I know not to, you know, expect a response if I'm pulling the audience, because I'll do that frequently just to kind of make sure everyone's good before I move on to another topic. Okay, so a little bit about the flow of the class. So we have quite a bit of materials to get through. We are going to talk about I'm fighting cold/allergies, so I have to mute myself every now and then so that I'm not coughing on y'all, so sorry for that. So a little bit about the flow. So we're going to talk about some basic navigation. We're going to talk about notifications. You know, how do you know if people are requesting time off, or how do you know if there's any kind of schedule deviations, people showing up late or not showing up at all, and things like that. We'll then move into the scheduling, and for this course, it's really just going to focus on the basic scheduling entitlement that comes with Timekeeper. All right, and then we'll move into timekeeping. So, you know, basically, what are some of the things that we can do in the time card and stuff like that. So kind of the layout of the time card and some of the things you might see on there and so forth. So what it's going to be is kind of a combination of me demonstrating some things and then giving you all some lab time and letting you go into your tenants and doing some hands-on exercises. So you'll get, you know, it's really nice that sometimes for a lot of folks this is the first time they get to kind of see and touch the system. Typically it's expected that you've done some pre-work in Knowledge Map or Knowledge Map Live prior to coming to this class. Hopefully you've been able to do that. But I know that's not always the case, so I always kind of like to have an idea of what the mix is. So a couple of things I'll ask, and again, if you find it easier to type in the chat, I love to hear from you, so I fully encourage you to do that. But a couple of things I'd like to know is, If this is the first time you're seeing this system at all, period, can you give me thumbs up? If it's the first time you're seeing it, give me thumbs up. The other thing I'd like you to use the chat tool for is in the chat window, if you could just type in there and tell me if you're brand new to Workforce Dimensions, brand new to Kronos altogether, or are you migrating? And if you're migrating, what are you migrating from? Just like to know if I have some comparisons and some things I'll note along the way. Some folks migrate from iSeries, some from earlier versions of Workforce Central. Just, again, like to get a little idea of where folks are coming from. Okay, some Workforce Central migrations. So most are saying Workforce Central. I'm just curious how many are, maybe from Navigator or the Classic view, so if you want to chime that in there too. Currently on Central. Okay, all right, good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all the responses. Appreciate it. Okay, great. All right, so again, I find that kind of helpful. Sometimes I cite some comparisons. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about when I do those, then you can just tune me out. But for some folks, I like to, you always want, this is a brand new product, but let's face it, when it comes to an automated time and attendance system, there's common goals and common threads, right? You got to have a basic schedule in place to know when people are supposed to be there, to kind of plan when folks should be working, and then you need a way to capture their ins and outs. When did they punch in? When did they leave for the day? Or maybe if they're in and out for their meal breaks and so forth. And then you need to know when they've deviated from that. And perhaps you're doing self-service where you've got employees punching in requesting time off through the system. So some of those things are kind of common threads, but we definitely, and by the way, I've been with Kronos for over 17 years, so I've seen quite a bit from our product growth and how things have evolved, and this one's really the most exciting thing I've seen yet. I hear from a lot of customers kind of, over the years of training, things that they've said, I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that, A lot of those wishes are granted in Workforce Dimensions. So I always start by saying, kind of some of the similar things to my classes to kind of talk about that and introduce things that they should expect. And then along the way, as they start to get in there and start to get to touch it and play a little bit, they're like, yeah, oh yeah, So hopefully you'll find the same thing, that it's very streamlined and flexible, very flexible. So a lot of really enhanced reporting and analytical possibilities with Workforce Dimensions. So hopefully you guys will agree with me once you get your hands in there and start working through some of the exercises. So I talked a little bit about the objectives, kind of the sections that we're going to cover. I just want to kind of, check with everyone and make sure, and I need to hear from everyone on this, if you were able to get into your tenant. Just get to the login screen, and I will share their credentials. I know some of the classes I've observed, they wait until after they've demonstrated to share the credentials. I personally want to share them straight up front because, the tenants are sometimes a little temperamental, and if anyone's going to have any trouble with it, I want to know up front. Not to mention some of the no-shows, sometimes I might leverage their tenant if they don't show up, if somebody else is having an issue. So, Siva, let me see. I can email that to you. So bear with me. That's the other thing. Sometimes people can't find that. There is a way. Actually, I can email it to you, but you should be able to. I do want to point this out. You should be able to access that from your from the same way that you were able to get in and access. Let me share a quick job aid with you. Bear with me. Let me open it up real quick. So I'm sharing on my screen right now the instructions. And so if you follow these instructions and you still cannot locate your tenant, let me know and I can go. I have two different places. One place I go get your tenant information, and then I have your email address, and I can shoot you an email with that. But I think it's important to know where to go get your tenants, so if you take any other training classes that involve tenants, that you will know how to access them. So, first of all, under Knowledge Map Live, you'll see your training, so you access, the training, and then you'll see My Tenants, and you'll be able to click a button that says Launch Tenant. So let me know if you're able to find it there, and if you're not, I can go ahead and send it to you. But if you're able to see your tenant, go ahead and, if you got to the login screen, hold tight, I'll give you the credentials in just a moment. I just need to know if you could at least get to the login screen, give me thumbs up. And if you don't have access to thumbs up, use the chat tool and just let me know. Even if you're working on it or looking, just let me know. I'll hold tight while folks are trying to go find that and connect to it. Excellent, okay. Half the battle, getting to the tenants and getting everyone signed in. Once we get that going, we'll be cooking with gasoline. And, one of the most important burning questions people have is, yes, we will have a break at some point. I usually try and clump it in with the exercises. So when we get to one of the sections with the exercises, somewhere in the middle-ish, I get to a good breaking point, I'll say, hey, go ahead and take some time to do your exercises and take a break as well. So you'll get plenty of lab time, and, you can always duck off to go get yourself a refreshment or hit the restroom or whatever you need to do. Okay, so yes, I can. So bear with me. I'm going to have to pause my screen sharing, but hopefully everyone got the instructions and kind of know where you're looking for it. So again, I'm going to pause my screen sharing so I can access that other information and send that off to you. Okay, so I didn't provide the credentials yet. I said I want to make sure everyone can get to the login screen, because otherwise what happens is I have to keep telling the credentials over and over again. So I would just like to make sure everyone can get to the sign-in screen, and then I'll tell you what the credentials are, because it's a training credentials that we'll use for the machine, if that's what you're talking about, if you're talking about your credentials for the tenant. We have a training persona that we'll utilize, so I will share that just as soon as I'm sure everyone can get to their tenant. Siva, I sent you an email with your tenant link. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Joe. So anybody else, I'm still waiting to hear from some folks. So if you don't have the link, and I will say this, it is recommended that you use Google Chrome as the browser to launch, because I have seen folks have issues accessing their tenant or logging into their tenant if they're using a different browser. I personally learned that lesson the hard way early on. So anyways, I'll say that, make sure you try and use Google Chrome if you can. Awesome. Okay. Carrie, okay, let me send that to you right now. Hang on. All right, anybody else? Everybody else okay? I'm still, Amy, Joe, you said you're good. Joseph, you good? All right. Carrie, your email has been sent, so hopefully you'll have that momentarily. Brittany, if you're talking about logging into Workforce Dimensions, just hang tight. I haven't provided the username and password yet. It's going to be the same for everyone. Everyone's accessing their own instance of the tenant. Oh. So, Joseph, have you tried up top? There is a meeting menu, and under the meeting menu, there's an audio setup wizard that you can maybe potentially walk through and make sure the settings, you just test it and see. I've also just posted in the chat the KVC support. So if anyone runs, it's worth jotting it down and having it handy. If you have any kind of issues and can't connect or work things out, we only have a limited amount of time to kind of get through everything. So, and I'm not as technical as they are, so I can only help to a certain degree. But I would suggest reaching out to them if you are having issues that we can't get resolved that are interfering with your participation. Sorry about that. Okay, so Carrie, you said you're good, so that means you got the URL and you got to the login screen. Joseph, are your audio issues just that you can't hear me? Are you able to hear okay, or you're just not allowed to speak? Like, what's the... I muted everyone, by the way. Sorry about that. I did mention that. I muted everyone earlier, so if you're dialed in on the phone, this would probably be helpful for me to share. If you are dialed in on the phone and I have muted you, you can use the tools on the meeting window up top. There's a picture of the phone and it's green. You can click on that to mute or unmute yourself. Also, there are key code combinations on the phone. So in other words, you can do *6 to mute yourself, #6 to unmute. So if you want to chime in and speak at any time, again, you can #6 to unmute your line, *6 to mute it. Sometimes I was just hearing some feedback or something was making my phone feedback, so I muted everyone so that I would stop hearing everything I was saying playing back to me really loud. So anyways, hopefully everyone's good to go now. My last kind of housekeeping question before we get going here really is to make sure that everyone has the course materials. Okay, so if you miss anything along the way, if your audio is giving you issues, kind of let me know, and I'll do whatever I can to help everyone kind of stay with me here. So now for the important stuff here. I'm going to put it on the whiteboard nice and big so everyone can see it. The credentials. I've sat, like I said, I've sat in classes where this is kind of a secret at the beginning, but I'm going to share it because I want to make sure everyone can get logged in. All right? So I'll start by saying we're going to be working, let me back up. I did ask everyone who got the materials. I saw some yes. I cleared the responses. Just type in the chat if for some reason you didn't get it. Again, that's something I can email if anyone needs it, because there's going to be exercises you're going to need to do, and I'll say do exercises, 1 through 5 or whatever it is, and so I'll want to make sure that you have the steps for that. I will be doing different demonstrations and things like that, and then I'll say, okay, now we're going to break, not break, but pause, and I stay on the line. You go work on the exercises. Let me know if you have questions. That's kind of the flow. So I'm going to go ahead and type in here the username. We're going to be working as a manager. Michael, let me see if I can type correctly. Michael Martin is the manager. And Michael, again, he's going to have some permissions to do, basic scheduling and timekeeping. I'm typing something up right now for you. It doesn't show it as I'm typing it. It waits until I'm done. It's just the way the system works. So everyone should see it now. The username is Michael Martin, and the password is automate1 with an exclamation point. And one way or another, please let me know if you're able to log in with those credentials, thumbs up or use the chat tool. Just let me know one way or the other if you're good or if you have issues. Just let me know. Thumbs up works best. I know one person can't do that, but if the rest of you, that's a good, quick visual way for me to see that everyone's okay. Awesome, awesome. Oh, fabulous. All right. Good stuff. Nice. Okay. Perfect. Great. Brittany, you get in okay? Because I know initially, I don't know what credentials you were trying before, but it didn't let you in, but it did work this time with these different credentials. Awesome. All right. Fabulous. Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for responding. All right. So jot those down so you have them handy. So if we break and you time out or you log out or whatever, you have them handy. So jot down that username and password, please. Okay. So bear with me for a second. All right, so we kind of talked about the things that we're going to cover. I kind of gave you a real high level, but to be more specific, we're going to talk about the home page and the layout of it, how to navigate, like I said, reviewing notifications and so forth. We're going to talk about scheduling, some basic scheduling components, how to add basic schedules and edit and delete and add pay codes and transfer employees and manage time off requests, reporting, and then some time card tasks around adding punches and pay codes and, time card transfers and exceptions and so forth. So let's just start by talking a little bit about some of the typical tasks. So from a scheduling perspective, again, we're going to be looking at building future schedules. Scheduling is also where time off requests are managed. So again, if you want to use the chat tool, let me know if anyone is going to be using that employee self-service, allowing your employees to request time off in Dimensions. I'm going to continue on if you want to type that in there. I'll kind of keep an eye on those chats as they come in. Oh, great. Yep. All right. Yeah, chat, thumb up, thumbs down, whatever. That's good. Awesome. Some folks are going to be using it. Great. So you'll get to see today at least how that notification looks. So how does a manager get notified when they get that time off request? And you'll get to see how to respond to it. And in fact, one of your exercises will be to respond to a time off request. So it's kind of cool. And then manage daily staffing. So things are going to happen. People are going to call you and say, I can't come in. You need to find someone else to fill that shift and things like that. But again, we're looking at just the basic scheduling entitlement. So we won't be talking about availability or open shifts or shift swaps or any of that good stuff today, okay? And then we have the timekeeping piece, monitoring employee hours. Again, that schedules our plan. When are we expecting folks to work, and maybe where are we expecting them to work? And so we're also going to get some alerts that notify us, you know, when people work outside of their schedule. Maybe they didn't show up, they came in early, they came in late, things like that. We're going to do some basic time card editing and then approving the employees' time cards for payroll processing. So again, these are just some of the typical manager tasks, and that's the persona that we're working with today in Dimensions in this class. All right, bear with me just a moment. I need to pull up one more thing to share. I apologize if it's noisy. It's an extremely noisy morning in my area. Woke up to a hazardous spill like 2 miles from my house, so helicopters have been hovering all morning. I don't know if you hear them, but I hear them really loud. So anyways, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and I just want to keep moving on. Again, I'm going to do a lot in the application because I really prefer to do that hands-on and demonstrate that way. I just think that, you know, it makes it easier to sort of follow if you're, I'm having some technical issues, I'm sorry. What a day. It's not even Monday. It should be, everything should be worked out today. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to be working, like I said, as Michael Martin. He's our manager today. He's got all the access to everything we need to be able to see to do what we need to do today, right? So like I mentioned, there are going to be a lot of hands-on exercises today. So you're going to get lots of opportunity to work in the system and do some things. So first of all, Michael would like to adjust the layout of his homepage. He'd also like to make some adjustments to a data view he uses to monitor overtime and add a chart to his homepage so he can keep an eye on the data without having to access that data view. So basically what it's saying is, when he logs in, he has this basic layout on his screen with some initial information. The cool thing that this translates to is that as a manager, as a user, he has the opportunity to personalize and control what he sees. So when it talks about the data view and monitoring overtime, he's got a data view that he's got access to that has overtime information. He can create a chart and he can add that to his home screen so he doesn't have to go and repeat these steps every time he wants to view or analyze overtime. So it's really cool. I think it's super neat. And that's been a lot of the feedback that I've gotten as well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go ahead. I'm logged in as Michael. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You'll see exactly what you probably are seeing in your own system. Okay. So actually, let me adjust my view so I can see if anyone sends me any chats or questions along the way. Okay. So when we logged in as Michael, all these squares that we're seeing all over the window here, these are considered tiles. So we're seeing a My Profile, My Time Off, My Notifications, Manage Schedules. So the first square or tile is Michael's profile. Next to that, you see the My Time Off. So what this tells us is Michael is also someone that is an employee in the system as well. So he's not only managing time off requests and things for other folks, he's able to request his time off in the system as well. So he's doing it for his own purposes, kind of self-service for himself as well. Now, in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to talk about the tiles a little more, but I just kind of, again, a little bit lay of the land. All the way in the upper left-hand corner, I've heard people kind of refer to this as kind of like the little hamburger icon. This is going to be our main menu. As we float our mouse pointer over that, we'll see a little text pop-up that says Main Menu. So you can go ahead and click on that, and you'll see some things there. You know, if you want to click along with me, you can. I would prefer you wait on the actual exercises that I'm kind of demonstrating, because I kind of run with scissors and might stray from the steps exactly a little bit. Then you're going to have very specific exercises that the data in your database supports you doing. But again, right now we're just kind of getting acclimated, so if you just want to watch mine, that would be good. So on that main menu, when it slides open, we see Michael's little picture there, and then we see the little sign out icon. So of course, whenever we're done working in the system, we want to make sure that we sign out to securely end our session. And then below that, we have some menus. We see time, we see schedules, data views and reports. Oh, my information, again, that's tying to Michael himself as an employee. Maintenance and administration, depending on a person's role, is going to determine what their permissions are and how they interact with the system. So, you know, they could have access to the setup features and components, but it may be very limited if they're, you know, maybe a manager or supervisor that has just timekeeping responsibilities. And I don't mean the just lightly, because we know that is quite the undertaking for some managers that have a lot of employees. So what I want to point out here is the search field. Go up to the search field, and if I'm going to go in there and I'm going to click, and I'm going to type in there, oh, let me just type in something like pattern. So anyone that's got any kind of familiarity with the scheduling or the basic scheduling knows and has heard of schedule patterns or pattern templates. We still have those. Those are a fantastic tool for anyone that's familiar with that term from Workforce Central. We did, come out with this great new product, but some of the other things were still good. You know, not everything was bad. Some of the other stuff was still really good and still relevant, like schedule patterns, pattern templates. Really helps you streamline your scheduling. So again, we'll learn about those in a little bit for anyone that's not familiar. Now, when I type in patterns, it tells me no matches are found. Okay. Well, I'm going to click the little X there on that search field. I am going to go down to where it says administration. I'm going to click the little arrow in front of that, and I'm going to choose application setup. Now, when you open setup, it opens a separate tab in the browser. It takes us to a separate tab for anything to do with setup and configuration and all that good stuff. And you can see here our pal Michael has very limited access. Now, if I go over to that main menu again and I click that search field and I type in pattern again, oh, hey, I start to get some results. So the moral of the story is the search field is specific to setup. It only works with setup. So if you're to log in as a manager and you don't have access to setup and you're typing things in the search field and nothing's coming up, it's not that it's a faulty field. It's just that it's specifically, it should be like search setup or something like that, right? Because that's really what it's allowing us to do. Search and find related items in the setup window. So I just kind of wanted to, point that out. It's the first thing you kind of see besides sign out on that main menu. So I just want to point out the purpose for that search field is to search for items in setup. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close that second browser tab that popped open. Takes me back to my dimensions window. And so I just wanted to kind of point that out, how that search field works. Now the next thing I want to talk about is some of these tiles have little arrows with little triangles in them. If you float your mouse pointer, it's going to say My Profile Tile Actions. So it's a little actions menu. Not every tile has it, but 3 of the 4 that we see here do. So again, this is what I was kind of talking about when I said it's really cool that we can control the layout of our screen. That's something that I've always heard people ask about. Not everybody asks about it, but I've heard that question more than once over the years. Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? No, sorry. Somebody else kind of has those decisions, and they have those conversations, and they define it or configure it up front, and then here's what you get to use, which has served us well for a lot of years, but, people want that flexibility. And we, kept hearing we needed greater analytical and reporting capabilities, and so now we have it. So now, if it's really cool to be able to personalize it. So if Michael says, I don't like logging in and having myself look back at me every morning or every time I log in, we can click that Actions menu and we can hide that tile only, okay? And then if I say, you know, I want to rearrange this, as much as I love time off, it's not the primary thing I'm doing every time I log in here. I might drag that over to the far right side. And I might say, well, scheduling I do all the time, so I want that first. That's what I do most of the time. Or maybe I deal with notifications and then schedules. Okay, I can rearrange this and, you know, kind of make it my own. Now, there is a little icon that has, up on the right-hand side, it's got a little circle with an arrow and an exclamation point, and it's red. If I float my mouse pointer over that, it says Restore Home Page. So when I click on that, I get a little warning. If you restore this home page, it will return to the original settings and blah, blah, blah. And I click OK. It'll say it's restored. And you might look at this and say, where's the profile? When you hide something, it doesn't restore. That'll restore the order. And I don't know, it does something funky to the attendance. It was my time off, but somehow this training tenant, it does something a little funky with that. But it did rearrange the order. If we want that tile to come back, we have this little gear icon in the upper right-hand corner. And again, if we float our mouse pointer over it, it says Tile Library, and I click on that. Oh, hey, it slides open this nice little drawer that says Tiles, and I can see the standard tiles. Oh, hey, there's my profile. I can click on that. Maybe I want my time off. You know, notice that they're highlighted in blue. There's a check mark next to it if it's already turned on. And I might say, you know, maybe if I punch in and out too, I could say I want that punch or the time card. You get the gist. I can click and turn a couple of these on, click Apply, and there they go. And again, I can totally rearrange. If I say, I don't want that attendance one, I don't know where that came from, I can hide it. You know? So again, I can choose to rearrange things how I see fit. Maybe I want that over here in this third column. And then when I sign out and I sign back in, it retains the settings that I have defined for myself. So it's really, really nice in having that flexibility. And just when you probably think it can't get any better, it certainly does. I promise, it does get better. And so, as if that's not cool enough, in my opinion. So we also have the ability to go and access some other data views and the data view library. So the gear icon allows us to kind of see the tiles that are available. But if we want to go one step further and we want to kind of customize or tailor the displays that we see, we can go back over to the main menu. We can go to Data Views and Reports, and we can choose Data View Library. Now again, I encourage you, if anyone has any questions along the way, please use the chat window or throw your hand up. If you're typing a question, you want me to stop where I'm at and not keep going, you know, throw your hand up while you're typing. I can wait. But, you know, if you want to speak to me, I'd love to hear your voices as well. Sometimes it gets quiet and lonely when I'm teaching these classes. So anyways, when we go to this data view library, oh wow, there's lots of options here. Analytics, attendance, other, scheduling, timekeeping. We've got a lot of options here. And so these are just different, what we call data views. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leverage this overtime versus actual. Again, if you just kind of want to watch while I'm doing it, you're going to have the opportunity to do this as well. Now you might see this initially and you might think, for anyone that came from the Workforce Central world, you might think, oh, this kind of looks like this looks familiar. Initially, it might on the surface, but it's like genies on steroids, for lack of a better description, because it's not just the ability to gather columns. We have lots of different things we can do with these columns. So we have a lot of flexibility. Again, you can still sort by, you know, maybe the employee name or the primary location or whatever, but we have other things that we can do. Sometimes people have asked me when they worked in Genies, can I add a column? Can I remove a column? If you're a system administrator, you can do that for everybody else, but you can't do it for yourself. I mean, the system administrator, of course, could do it for themselves or anyone else. But as a manager, a timekeeper, supervisor, I didn't have the ability to personalize that view for myself. I would have to go to the system administrator to do that. Not anymore. With these data views, we have a lot of flexibility. Now, it doesn't mean we can just pick and choose any old thing we want to add. We have some limitations or predefined options for each of the different data views, but still a whole lot more capabilities than we've ever seen before. So let's say, for example, I know where these people work. I don't need to see this primary location every time. I can click that little drop-down arrow, and I can say, hide that column. Maybe I prefer to see the jobs. I don't know what a job everybody knows or does, whatever. I know where they're working because I have visibility to them. They work for me, right? But maybe I want to see the jobs. I can go over here where on the far right there's a little funnel. So going across the column headings, go to that little funnel. I can click on that, and I could choose, oh, hey, primary jobs not turned on. So I said there are some predefined options is what I mean. The different data views are going to have different options based on the type of information they are presenting you with, okay? So if we choose primary job, oh, hey, it adds that column. I like that. And then I can also, we couldn't do this before, we can drag it over here and say, I want that right next to the employee's name. Cool. All right. Then I can go and I can say, you know what, I want to go to the, actually I'm going to go to the employee name column. I'm going to click that heading and I'm going to say, I want to count. How many employees do I have? Oh, 84. Puts a count at the bottom. That's pretty neat. I might go over to the primary job column, click that drop-down arrow, and I might say group by this column. Ah, that's cool. Now, not only do I see that I have a total of 84 employees, but I can tell there's 10 of them are facilities technicians, 11 of them are draftsmen, 2 are warehouse clerks, and so on and so forth. And on that first column, I can open up any one of these categories like draftsmen, and I can see who are the 11 folks that are my draftsmen. Now, I will tell you, because this is a tenant and these get created, you know, a little bit in advance of the training, I mean, not too far in advance, but a little bit, you know, they don't stick around forever, so they're not hooked up to live clocks. These are not real people. We don't have real ins and outs. We have a huge number of unexcused absences. The little bell in the upper right-hand corner, this is 369. We're not resolving all of those today. But that's your notifications for things that might need your attention. We'll get back to that in just a few minutes, but I just kind of wanted to kind of brace you why we're not seeing anything in the actual hours or the overtime hours, because we don't have a lot of data in here in terms of ins and outs, because we don't have people really punching in and out in the training tenants. Okay. Now, I will also point out in the upper right-hand side, below the title of the data view, it says overtime versus actual analysis. Right below that to the right, it says previous pay period, and it says all home. This is where we get to choose what period of time the information below represents, and also where we can make choices. Right now it says all home. If I click on that, I can choose a different location. You know, I could potentially, if my permissions allow me to create hyperfines to choose people that meet certain criteria, I can do that as well. So we have the opportunity to choose people based on different information, you know, also based on what hyperfine queries are available and what our business structure looks like. All right. So, so I'm not done yet. It doesn't stop there. So I've done a couple things so far. Now, on the far right side, again, if I go back to that funnel, by the way, I might say I want to save the things I've done so far. You know, again, if I want this to stick so that when I leave and I come back into this data view, it keeps the settings that I've defined, we have to click that little save button on the right-hand side there above the funnel. So it's not, I saved, so it's not orange any longer. It's stored what I've done. Okay, now, if I want to click that funnel again, click the little drop-down arrow, I have some other options. You know, it doesn't only show us the columns that we have access to or visibility to, it also shows us where it says, the very top option says Show Filters Row. I'm going to click on that. So what do we have here? We have the ability to tell the system You know, what kind of information what do we want these folks to meet? What criteria do we want them to meet to be included in terms of the totals, like the actual hours, the overtime hours, or even the employee name piece? You can search for that as well. But if I were to say that, on the actual hours, if I click on the drop-down for that and I say, you're going to see all these options, equal, exclamation, equal, greater than, less than, and so on and so forth. And for anyone that's curious, you know, I've had people ask me, how do I know what all of these things mean? Yeah, I will tell you the online help is phenomenal. So the little question mark up top on the right-hand side, anytime you're going to hit that, whatever screen you're on when you do, it's going to bring up help topics specific to that. So from a data view perspective, there is a breakdown of what each of these items mean. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and choose is not null. So basically means is not nothing. You know, it doesn't have it's greater than 0 basically. All right. So so I've got some, we saw a whole lot of those jobs disappear. And the chances are, like I said, we don't have real people punching in and out, populating information here. So we're going to have a high number of null, of nothing. All right. So is not null. So we can see, well, apprentice welders, if I open up that, oh, hey, we've got some hours, actual hours. No, we got some overtime hours. That's good stuff. I look at facility technicians. There's only 2 people. Oh, Mabel and Laura. Oh, wow, they got some overtime. They're really working them. Okay. So you get the gist. Again, if I'm going to save, I want to see that. And then at any time, as other people that work for me that have different jobs that I have visibility to, if they, you know, are not null, based on what my current settings are, they'll show up in this list. Those jobs will be added, showing those people with the data that supports this overtime versus actual view. It gets better. There's more. There's absolutely more. But tell me so far, what do you think? Pretty cool to have that flexibility? Are you liking it? Yes? No? Can't wait to try it out? What do you think? Really increased analytical opportunities. And this is just one way to look at it. Folks like to view and analyze data all different kinds of ways, and so if you like this view, you certainly can do that. People also ask me, hey, is there an Excel option? There's not a particular exercise, but since that question has been asked to me multiple times, I like to tell you that there's a little share button up there so you can share information from any of these data views. Do I have any Excel fans or junkies that like to do like, you know, pivot tables and all that good stuff? Any financial type folks in the class? I think pivot tables are slick. I'm a little bit ignorant in the dark on them. I'm not very skilled in them, but I know they're pretty slick. Oh, good. Yeah, a lot of people. Awesome. So depending on the data views, you're going to want to explore them. We only get a chance to touch a couple, right? So you'll want to make sure that you get familiar with those, see if there's any that will be really valuable to you. This is a really good one. A lot of organizations. So I just showed you, I just demonstrated how we can remove and add a column to the data view. So again, each data view has its predefined columns that are available. They may or may not all be displayed, but using the filter on the right-hand side there. So let me finish this. You can share to Excel, by the way. You can export it to Excel. But the little funnel on the far right will show you all the columns that are available. So you can turn on or off whichever columns you want. So we turned off the primary location and we had added the job initially. I did. So you're going to have an opportunity when it's time to do the exercises to try this out, and you'll get to see exactly how that works yourself. Okay. So so again, if you know, once I did that and I want to, sorry, did someone have a question?
Yeah, hi. So for the data library, so the manager is able to play around with the predefined set of columns only. The manager, generally speaking, would not have the ability to add a new column to the data library, right? To the data view.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's correct. But they didn't even have that flexibility in Workforce Central, so that's a really big bonus in my opinion. So yeah, no, it's only from the predefined options that are on that funnel. That'll tell you all the columns that are available, and those will be the ones that you can add from or remove from your data view. Okay.
But it should be possible to configure some rights, some access rights to the managers that they can expand on that list if they need to, or no?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand your question.
Is it possible to configure or give the manager some whatever function access, some access rights to be able to expand on that predefined column list?
So I'm going to say that I'm not extremely versed in the configuration for dimensions, but that's typically not something that you would want to give managers because from my experience, it can be challenging enough to get the system admins up and running because you can't just give them access to go and function access profiles are typically going to be permissions to can I do this or that, meaning can I add a punch, can I add a comment, can I add a pay code, can I, those kinds of things. But when it comes to from a configuration standpoint, there's usually more permissions and profiles and things that have to happen, and they would have to have admin type training then. It would be, really detailed for them to be able to do that from my understanding.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you're welcome. All right. So, all right. So the other thing is once we're done with that, if I've had that setting there, I turned on that is not null so that I'm only seeing people that have hours, I can go back to that funnel and I can click and choose to hide the filter rows. There's a clear option too, but I don't want to wipe out what I've set so far. Now, just when I said that it couldn't get better, it does. At the bottom, there's a charts option. I can go down there and click on charts. Nothing magical happens just yet. We can click on the little add. It says tile library, and we click the little plus sign there, and it pulls it up on the right. And we have another little create chart option there. So from that, we get to tell the system, okay, hey, we want to create a chart. What's it going to be? We're going to do a vertical chart. And I'm going to choose, I want it to be by primary job, kind of what I had there on my data view that I was showing. For the metrics, I'm going to choose overtime hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up with a vertical bar graph or chart that's going to show us overtime hours by job. So we saw we had 2 jobs with overtime hours. And so again, if other jobs in another time period, like let's say next pay period, and we're monitoring this information, if in the next pay period another job has overtime, it'll adjust that graph accordingly or that chart accordingly for each time period as people are working overtime. So it's a great tool to be able to monitor overtime, just even at a glance. We can always use the data views and get a closer look and get more detail, but it's really a great option initially. So I've got primary job, overtime hours. I'm going to leave the value calculations as sum. And then I scroll down a little bit. I might say, I might want to get rid of, let's get rid of the category title. And I go ahead and I choose save. Wait for it. Ta-da! We've got 24 hours or 29 hours and 24 minutes. There we go. Get that out right. And for apprentice welders. And then we got 62 hours for facilities technicians. And if you remember on that data view, I opened up each section to see all the people. And for that facilities technician, we had 2 people that each had 31 hours of overtime. So we know this jives with what was in that data view that we saw. So this is really neat that we can do this. Okay, so we've created it. And when I created it, I saved it, and then it generated it. So it's there. It's available to us. Okay. Now, if we want to add this to our home screen, I'll close that. I'll go up to, let me go back to my home screen, hit the little house there, go up to my tile library again, the little gear icon. And you can choose up top where it says select tiles. I can go right to the charts, choose my charts, and I want to find that OT, it was overtime hours by primary job. Click apply. Ta-da! It gets added to my home screen. That is so neat. In my opinion, I think that's really neat. Hopefully you guys like it as well. But this gets you thinking, right? Like, oh man, I wonder what other data views there are. What other information is available on those data views that I might choose to graph and have added to the home screen as an analytical tool. So there's a lot of possibilities. So I think it's really slick, and hopefully you guys like it as well. It's really, really a great analytical tool. Okay. So that's a little bit about the navigation, a little bit about what you can find. I will say this, you know, the online help is really good also. So in the upper right-hand corner, to the right of that tile library, little gear icon, there's a little question mark there. If you click on that, that will slide open the online help. And so, you know, right here it says getting started, but, you know, if you access this from other places, so right now we're on the home page, so that's why it's telling us getting started. But it has all the little, you know, what's the little hamburger icon, what's the little restore, what's the tile library. So it tells us everything. So depending on where we are, so I guess I would say it's context sensitive. So wherever I am in the system, I hit the online help, it's going to bring up help specific to that. Okay, so just as an FYI, if there's things you're curious about, remember to leverage and lean on that online help. Some of the best I've seen in any software about the detail that's there. Okay, so the moment you've been waiting for, you now have the opportunity, and I should have pulled open my document here so I can tell you what page numbers it is specifically. So you're going to go ahead now and you're going to do a couple exercises. Let me get right there so I can share with you exactly where they are. So I've talked about pretty much most of those things there that are on the screen there. Okay, so exercises 1, there's just a couple. So you'll have an exercise where you can navigate the home page, navigate a data view, and you'll be able to create a chart. So you've got 3 exercises, exercises 1 through 3. On your PDF version of the guide, if you have electronically, it's going to be starting on page 12. If you've got a printed copy, that's page 10. So pages 10 through, let me just make sure, 10 through 14, pages 10 through 14. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to do the exercise. I'm going to clear everyone's responses. I will ask you to please either give me thumbs up or excuse me. If you're able to give me thumbs up, I prefer that so I can kind of see who's done. But if the tool's not working for you, then you can just type in the chat tool and let me know. I'm going to clear all the responses, the chat tool and everything. And again, I'm going to set a timer for about 10 minutes. And that's just a rough estimate. Usually that's enough time for everyone to get through these couple exercises. So, you know, if everyone's done earlier, we'll continue on earlier. If folks need another minute or two, I'll give you a little bit of time. Again, you'll have a little time to, after class, if you need a little more time, you can continue to practice a little bit after class, but today only. These tenants get repurposed, these URLs get reused for other classes, so please do not try to access them beyond today. All right? So, but I just want to give you a little flexibility that you can continue to kind of practice and play. If you get a little behind, you'll have a little time at the end that you can practice a little more. So again, I'm going to go ahead and set the timer. I'm here, putting myself on mute. You have questions, I'll be monitoring the chat window, or you can just chime in and ask them, okay? So exercises 1 through 3, and I'm going to go ahead and set that timer now.